So I just got to the retreat area. I'm walking up. I'm like out in the middle of like nowhere. It's so cool. Anyway, very excited. Hola! So I'm finally going to talk about my experience with my 2 ayahuasca ceremonies at Mundo Gente Medicina. And it was about a month ago now, so it's taken me a while to do this video. At the end of this video, I will have some clips from when I'm actually there, like arriving my room, and even a little clip of me after my first ceremony. So I'm going to start with night 1. So night 1, I had arrived that day and got kind of settled in and stuff. I was anxious to start. Eventually they have up this fire, and we sit around it and state our intentions. So my official intention, I guess, was to let go of, forgive people, let go of resentments and regrets, so that I could then heal and find out who I was. So I kind of went in with that intention, and also the shaman Josue, he had kind of talked to us, and I had mentioned that I was super sensitive to psychedelics, and because I had had issues with psychedelics before, LSD, and just found that I was overly sensitive to them. So I'm thinking, I can't take a full dose. So we go into the room, him and I kind of talk, we had spoken about that. He ends up giving everyone a full cup. He gives me slightly less than a cup. And you're sitting there, and it's like each person goes up, when you're in your bed, and after he's poured the cups, each person goes up in order, and you see someone take a sip or take their cup, and then they go back to their bed, and then finally you get to go. So when I get up there, I'm like, nervous as hell. I take a sip, and then and it's not that bad of a taste, but it's definitely really strong. So I drink it, and then they rinse the cup out with water too, and then you drink that as well, so you get like every last bit of it. And so then I go and I lie down in bed, and I'm thinking, like, I'm trying to control like how it's going to go down. I'm like, I have to, let go, and I have to heal, and I have this image of how it's going to be in my head. Like, it has to be this way. I have to like talk to Mother Ayahuasca, and it's going to be this like beautiful experience, and it's not going to be like anything. It's not going to be like LSD. So I'm going in, and I'm lying there, and they leave the room. And you're in complete darkness for like, I don't know, a half hour or an hour, and then they come in and play music. But during that darkness, you're just sitting there and you're like, oh my God, when's it gonna come? So I'm trying to like micromanage everythting that's going through my head, though, to make sure it goes exactly how I want it. And then essentially, like, I start thinking, maybe I'm feeling it, I'm not sure. And then I get this like image in my head of an elephant, and it's like a kind of like sacred artwork type elephant, like something you would see that was an ancient piece of artwork of an elephant, maybe, but it was like pink on the outside, and it was just like, and I just had that image in my head for a second. I was like, I don't know if I like thought of that, if I brought that into my head, if that's the ayahuasca working, but I kind of was like, whatever. So I'm sitting there, and the music's not playing, but in the far, far distance, like, I think it was a weekend night or something, but in the far distance, like, you hear a little bit of music, like, beats, like, I heard like a beat or something, and it was like a heavy beat, but I mean, it was far away, but I could still hear it. And then I see like this blue like show up, like with the beat. It's like boom, and it's blue, and then it's gone, and it is like I could see the music. I don't know, that was weird. I was like, oh shit, okay, so it's coming. And then I don't really know how it happened, because at this point then it starts coming on a little quicker, and I'm like, okay, this is not going to be like LSD. I don't want this to be like LSD. But then in my mind, I think it was by the time they had come in and started the music, but I was going so fast I couldn't even focus if the music was happening, like what was going on at this point. But then it starts feeling a little like LSD, and I'm like, fuck. I'm like, this is not going to be like LSD. I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I'm like trying to control it and say that it's, this isn't how it's going to be. Like, no, this can't be like LSD, because I'm seeing all these things. I mean, it wasn't really like LSD, but for maybe a few minutes, it was kind of feeling that way, and I'm like, no, like, I don't want an LSD trip. And then, I don't know how it happened, but I was holding on so tight saying, this is how it's going to be. I guess the medicine was like, you have no control over this. And it essentially like blasted me off. Suddenly I'm in a complete ego death, completely detached from myself. And like at that point I didn't care, because it was like at that point I was just my consciousness, right? So my consciousness is completely separate from my body, from my mind, from my fears, from all these things that I'm thinking. It's separate. So I'm just there chilling, and I knew what it was, because I knew what an ego death was. I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, well, here I am. And I could see myself like down below me, down below my consciousness, like on earth. I could see the anxiety. I could like see just my personality that isn't actually who I am. I'm just up there, and I'm kind of thinking, I'm like, oh, okay, so why am I here? Like, I had to keep, I remember I had to keep like reminding myself of like my reasons. And like when I was before I slipped into the ego death, I kept trying to remind myself of my reasons, what I was trying to do, my preconceived notions about it. I kept trying to remind myself of those things. And I remember they kept slipping my mind, like I couldn't remember them anymore. And then when I was up there, it was like all those things, like they didn't matter. It was just like everything was so irrelevant. I was like, I don't know why I had all these ideas of how it had to be and this, that, and the other. I was holding on to all this stupid stuff, and I was just like, so none of that matters. But I had to keep saying to myself, okay, I know I'm going to go back to my body. What is my purpose? You know, what am I supposed to be doing up here? There's a reason I'm here. I'm in this like in between. I don't know. It feels like you're falling through dimensions. Like it's crazy. It's just this, I don't know. I can't really explain where I was, but it was definitely out of this world. So, yeah, I keep trying to say, okay, what's my reason? What's my purpose? Or for doing this, and why am I here? And then I'm not sure exactly when this occurred, but I do remember seeing. Yeah, I remember seeing my body below me, kind of like I could feel it was below me. Because, you know, if you really want to access your body again, you can still get back into it. Like I could still move to check on my body, because I was also concerned that my body was dead, because I was that detached from it, and I really wouldn't have cared if it was dead, because like where I was, there was no, it was just everything was fine. So I was like, if I'm here forever, it's okay. Like that's cool. So, anyway, then as I'm kind of realizing I'm kind of in this space, like here's my body, here's my consciousness, and then I start kind of going to this in-between space, between consciousness and between the mental state, or between like, I guess between, you know, where your consciousness lies, and between, or where my consciousness was, and between my body and my mind. I kind of went to this in-between state where I could kind of access my body and my consciousness at the same time, and they were starting to come back together, but they weren't together yet. And I had this moment, and I was like, okay, well, like, what do I need to let go of? Like, what am I sad about? You know, like, what is it? And this thought kept coming up, oh, it's my ex. And I was like, no, it's not going to be him. This isn't going to be about him. I don't want this to be about him, because I've worked on that. But it had to come out. I was like, okay, fine. I guess I am sad about it. I had to think about it. And then suddenly I start crying. Like, I'm just sobbing. But it was so weird, because I was crying, but it was like I was also outside of myself. So it's like I could see that it was a separate part of me. Like my sadness was not a part of me, and I was feeling it and purging it from my body, but I still wasn't totally in my body. So it was like this weird in between where it was like, yeah, it was just like not really watching, but it was like being aware that someone was crying and you're purging those tears, and you can kind of feel it, but you're not in it. Like I wasn't a part of it. So my sadness was not a part of me at all. I was just like, I was purging it even though it wasn't me. I don't know how to explain. It's really hard to explain. Anyway, but as I start kind of coming back to my body, I'm still in my consciousness, and my consciousness still has control, and my fears and anxieties that are in my mind are still completely below me, and they're not a part of me. And I'm like, fuck, okay, I have more I have to do. And at this point, the shaman Josue comes around, and he essentially, I guess he's like, how are you doing? And I'm like, this is my consciousness talking. I'm like, I'm good, but I think I need more, because I need to keep doing what I'm doing, because I could feel that there was so much more I had to do. So I asked for half cup more. He gives me half cup more, and then I'm able to kind of stabilize and stay in this place like for a long while, I guess. And, you know, it just like at some points it kind of felt like, I know this is going to sound weird, but I felt like I guess it was after the second cup, things started moving really fast. Like, I felt like I was flying through like dimensions and space and all this crazy shit. And but then sometimes it would feel like my brain was being downloaded with information. Like it was like information that I couldn't process. It was just coming in so fast. I felt like all this information was coming in. I don't know, it was really hard to explain. But then what else was interesting about it is, at this point, since, I'd been kind of out of my body for a while, I kept thinking, okay, I realized I was like, okay, well, I should make sure my body's okay. So I remember kind of checking down on myself, and I would occasionally feel my heart rate. It would be like, okay, the heart's beating, right? But I could like see that I was like literally lying on my right cheek with my mouth like open, and like I think like drool was coming out. Like I was like lobotomized. Like my body was just like, I was completely gone. And I mean, that, it sounds scary, but honestly, like being up there, like where I was, when you're detached from your ego and you're detached from your anxieties and you're detached from that mental thing that tells you there's a problem, like you're fine. Everything's fine. It's light. All this stuff here on earth is heavy. Anyway. So I go through this, I'm kind of letting go of things, going through more things. And then eventually when I do get back to my body, I remember I was like, okay, like, what do I do? I was like, I want to go back to my room to sleep to just kind of process this. I thought it was like pretty much over. So I was at a point where I was back in my body. I mean, things were kind of weird, but I was back in my body, and then I tried to walk to my room. And of course, when you're walking on this stuff, like, oh my God, it's like, you can't, it's so hard to walk straight. It is like, kind of like being drunk, but not that feeling of being drunk, but like physically you don't have like the control of your body that you need. Anyway, okay, so then I end up going back to my room, and I'm not sure how long like I laid in my bed, but I guess I ended up in my bed, and I had my journal with me, and I'm not sure if I was asleep or kind of in like a halfway state, but eventually I do remember in the morning I woke up, and I guess I don't know how it happened, but I just like, or exactly what triggered it, but I just like started crying. All the realizations started coming through, I remember. And I'm still kind of hallucinating, like seeing all this, like all these crazy moving patterns. I'm like, fuck, I should have taken that second cup. And I'm like, is this going to end? Like, what do I need to do to get this to end? But really what I had to do was process. So I'm processing, I'm crying, I'm letting things go. And I actually I had my journal, and I remember I was writing down just realizations that came to my head. They were coming like so like profoundly. It was insane. And I remember like the 2 hours before they finally like wake you up with like coconut water and fruit, like I was just in bed processing and like writing, and I mean, and crying, and I mean, it was it was really healing though. Like this sounds not good, but it was very good. And like I felt like I really figured out like everything that I needed to figure out just in that night. I was able to like let go of everything. It was really, really insane. So anyway, they wake you up with fruit, you have fruit, then we end up doing like the sweat lodge. And the sweat lodge, it's a whole long process. You haven't actually had a full meal for like almost 24 hours. It's been a lot, you don't, because you're not allowed to have a full meal before the ayahuasca and all this other stuff. Oh, also on the ayahuasca, on the first night, I did kind of throw up a few times, like more liquid, but I had a hard time purging physically on the first night, which was kind of frustrating because when I did feel my body, I was like, oh, I feel nauseous, I want to throw up. But I didn't really throw up. A little bit, but not much. Anyway, so we do the sweat lodge. It's this beautiful long process. It kind of brings everything to a point, and you kind of realize everything. They give you a little bit of San Pedro, which has mescaline in it, which is the balancing. The mescaline is masculine, and then the ayahuasca is the feminine. So you have this balancing effect, and it really does kind of bring you clarity. And then when you end up going back after the sweat lodge, which takes forever, it's been about 24 hours since you've eaten, and you get to this big, beautiful feast, and it's just amazing. You're sitting with everyone and you're eating, and it's so beautiful. Yeah, so that's my first ayahuasca. So, and then the second night, I will talk about, and essentially that was, I think it was 2 or 3 nights later, maybe 2 nights later. I'll get my notes on that. Okay, sorry. So the second night, which again, I guess was 2 days later or something, I went in with the idea heal, and then what's my joy and what's my purpose, right? So I'm thinking, okay, so I need to heal so I can find my joy and my purpose. So I go into the second night, and I'm thinking, I'm really tired at this point, because, you know, the first night was amazing, but obviously, like, all that processing afterwards is pretty exhausting. So, I don't know, I was just really tired. And by the time we did it, it's so late and everything else, so I take it the second night. Now, the first night had been black ayahuasca, I think it was called, so it's like a lower part of the vine, I think. And then the second night, I think it was red ayahuasca, and it's like the middle part. So the second one, they would say that the red ayahuasca, I think it was the red ayahuasca, would be more likely to cause an ego death, would be less grounded, would be more more hallucinations. So then I'm thinking, I'm like, well, if I had a fucking ego death on the black ayahuasca and I was totally not grounded at all, I was just completely like out of this world, then what's going to happen to me on the red ayahuasca, right? So I'm a little bit concerned about that, but, you know, once you have the ego death and you're there, you realize it's not scary at all. There's nothing to be scared of. So I guess we have the fire, everything's good. I end up, there's someone else there, and like he sees that I don't have like anything super warm to wear, and he gives me like his sweater, and I remember I put it on, and so we go into that ceremony, I'm wearing the sweater, and I take the red ayahuasca, which to me, it was thinner, it wasn't as thick, it didn't taste as strong as the black ayahuasca, so I'm like, it's gonna be fine. So I get in bed, and I guess I was like, I'm like, okay, I need to heal, I need this and the other, but I'm also trying to think about Earth, because I really want to stay on Earth this time. I want to think about Earth. So I'm trying to think about Earth. I don't remember. Oh, it was just like, it kind of came on a little bit, and it was so light, and I was just like, like, what's happening? And I remember I felt like I wanted to fall asleep. I wanted to fall asleep so bad, but I'm lying there, and I'm kind of closing my eyes, and then, like, I keep thinking about people, and the guy whose sweater I was wearing, I kept thinking about him, and I was like worried about him because he had been going through some stuff as well. So I'm like thinking about him, and then I'm thinking about other people, and I'm thinking about all these other people's problems, and then, I don't know, it kept going on. Like, it was actually kind of annoying. I was like, this is supposed to be about me. Like, why am I thinking about everyone else? And I was just like, it was like continue, other people, their problems. It was like, and I remember at one point it was like I would see someone or think of someone, then I would like see a conversation that they had like with someone else that made them feel a certain way. I don't know, it's really hard to explain, but that was happening, and the way I was thinking about people was definitely like in a much more profound way than I would normally be thinking about people, like very deeply. But I wasn't really like in that deep of a trip or anything. And I remember this night my goal had been to go out to the grandfather fire that they had to see the full moon, because it was also the full moon, which was really cool. So I'm like, okay, well, it may have been like an hour or two, and at this point I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go walk to the fire, like, I'm fine. So I walk to the fire, I look out at the moon, I see the stars, it's beautiful, but I'm unable to enjoy it because I'm literally like, I have all these preconceived ideas about tripping that are like, well, like, I don't like the way, you know, it makes me feel, so even if I see something beautiful, I guess I would not enjoy it so much. So that's something I needed to kind of apply to my life, is be like, these preconceived ideas I have about things, like, are getting in the way of me enjoying other things, because what I was seeing was beautiful, like the stars moving and like growing, and it was just really beautiful. And so, but I'm having a hard time enjoying it, I do remember that. And then, but I wanted to, and I wish I had, and afterwards I realized that I really need to stop, like, I need to enjoy things more, essentially. So I walked back, and I remember one of the girls that worked there, she asked me, she was like, so, because I think she had asked me before leaving if I wanted a second cup. I was like, I'm not sure yet, but I think she could sense that I, like, wasn't very far, I wasn't super affected. So when I come back in, I remember she approached me again. She's like, just let me know when you want your second cup, which was like so nice to hear her say that. I was like, okay, thank you. And I went and lied back in bed. And then finally I asked one of the guys there, I was like, hey, so can I get half a cup more? And because I asked him how long it had been, he was like, maybe it's been like 2.5 hours. So at that point, you know, it's not affecting you too bad. And, you know, the hallucinations were very minor. It was nothing. I was very very in control. So he comes with my second cup, and I remember I'm on my bed, and he's like on his knees next to me on my right side, I remember. And he looks at me, he's like, here's your second cup. And at that point, I look at him, and then my hallucinations start a lot. Like, it seems like he's morphing, and like all these like designs are in front of him. I don't know. And I'm like, I don't know if I can take it. I was like, I think it's hitting me really hard right now. And like, I remember I was really scared in that moment. And he kind of looked at me and waited. And like, at this point, he already knew me. He knew that like, I get like nervous for stupid reasons. So he was just like, he kind of looked at me and waited for me. So I took it. Well, he also said, he was like, trust the medicine, trust your instinct. Like, you know, he really was like, just trust. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I take a sip of it, and at this point, you know, my stomach's kind of turning, and it tastes so strong. I think I drank like maybe half of it, and I was like, oh, I don't want any more. He just sits there and waits again, kind of looks at me. He's like, and he still has it, and I'm like, okay, fine. So I take the rest of it and give it back to him, and I'm like, no more, no more. And then I lie in bed, and that's when it all kind of comes, and I'm just in this like, it was kind of hard actually, because I was like very present, like it's totally present. I mean, it was beautiful because I could hear the music, whereas the night before I could not hear the music, or my first ceremony, I couldn't hear the music. I mean, I could hear it, but I was not present enough to even think about it. So this night I'm very present. I can enjoy the music. I remember before I had taken the second cup and I walked outside, I saw like him and another girl like hug, and everyone was just having a joyous time, and it was this beautiful community, and I really liked that I could see that. But anyway, after that second cup, I am lying there. I can completely feel my body. I'm nauseous. I'm just like, ugh. And I'm thinking about people still. And it's like this, like, it's so annoying. And then all my thoughts from the day that I like had all day, like came into my head again. And it was like, I was reprocessing all those thoughts. And like, it was just like so annoying. It was like the voices in your head that don't stop. And they just kept coming. And then finally, I threw up, like, and it was good. Like, I cut out everything, and that was, like, really, you know, it doesn't sound good to throw up on ayahuasca, but it is. It really is when it actually comes. And so that was really nice. And, you know, I kind of spent the whole night just processing other people, processing just people, and all my thoughts just kind of in this, like, circular, not really a circular motion, but, like, this continual just people, thoughts, the voice in my head, continue. But, there was one moment, I think this was the scariest moment of both of the experiences, is I went to the restroom. I walked down the hallway to go pee. And this was after my second cup, when I think I was getting hit the hardest at this point. I go pee. I'm in the restroom, and I'm like, I have this thought in my head where I'm like, is this like really happening, or am I imagining it? Like, am I thinking about peeing, or am I actually peeing? Like, or am I thinking that I'm here, or am I actually here? Because I kind of had this fear that I was like, what if I'm asleep and I pee the bed or something? So I'm there, and I'm like, I have that thought, and then for a moment I realized I couldn't tell the difference between my thoughts and reality, and that was the scariest fucking moment. I remember I was like, wait, like the line between reality and my thoughts, it's not there right now. Like I was like, fuck, I'm tripping too hard. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to go back to my bed. I cannot leave the bed for the rest of this trip. So I went down the hallway and I lied in the bed, and I was like, oh my God, I was terrified. I was like, what if this is going to hit me too hard? But it was fine. I ended up kind of stabilizing, but then I was lying there, and I remember I was very in nature with this. I could see like this beautiful swamp around me, and you know, just everything, like the sounds of nature, it was all present. The music is very like nature sounding, so that was like another big part of it. So I'm just like kind of enjoying being in nature, but I also don't feel, you know, you don't feel great on ayahuasca, so I'm just kind of like, but also enjoying it. And but then I'm lying there, and I'm also really tired and kind of like falling asleep, and I'm breathing, but then I could like feel nature breathing, I guess. And I couldn't tell if I was actually breathing or like if I was breathing with nature. It felt like I was breathing with nature, like I had become one with nature, I guess. But then I was concerned. I was like, am I actually breathing? So I had to like take this deep breath. And then like I was like, okay, I'm breathing, it's fine. And so that happened maybe after I did that, I was like, okay, if I have that feeling again, I know what to do. So that feeling came back where I had melted into nature. Like I'm completely one with nature. When I breathe, she breathes, you know. And I would have to breathe, be like, wait, no, I got this, you know, because it is a little scary to just let go and just be like, I am one with everything. But I mean, we are, that's the thing. And I shouldn't have been scared. But I mean, it's a really intense, it's a really intense experience. So the night continued, and I was just kind of cycling through thoughts and all this other stuff. And then as I guess I was laying in bed, and then I was finally like, okay, I think I had the process with all the other people and all these thoughts. I was like, why am I thinking about this? And what it was is I came to realize, because my intention was, first and foremost to heal, was healing. I was thinking about healing, and I was like, and a lot of the people I was thinking about, when I was thinking about people, I was thinking about their problems and like how I listen to people and talk to people. And then I realized I was like, healing, I guess, is everything. Like, I find healing in healing others. Healing others heals me, but then I could feel the extreme exhaustion from that, but it also exhausts me. So my intention was, heal, joy, purpose. So healing is my joy. Through healing, I heal myself. It is my purpose, but it also completely exhausts me if I, overdo it, I guess, because, if you take on too many of other people's problems, it will exhaust you. So it's kind of everything. It's what feeds me. It's what takes away. It's everything, I guess, if that makes sense. So the whole night was about healing, but yeah, I realized just the importance of that, how much I want to heal others, how much I want to help others heal, and how that in turn heals me, but I need to find a balance so that I don't exhaust myself. It is my purpose, it is my joy, but I need to find a balance. So, I mean, all my intentions were actually met just through healing, which was amazing. So anyway, once I had that kind of realization, I'm lying there, I'm like, okay, I can rest now. I can rest my eyes and go to sleep. So I lie down, I'm lying down the whole time, but I finally just completely, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna let go and fall asleep. And then it's dark when I do that, and then suddenly, like, I'm still in my trip, and it's like I'm still in a dark room the whole time. And then all of a sudden, it's like the sun's up, like, bam, it's like someone turned on a light. Like, it's not like the sun came up slowly, which it did come up slowly, but the way I see it is like it went from dark to light, like bam. And so I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm up. And it must have been like 5 a.m. at that point. And I remember I walked out, and there were like 2 people still at the fire. And also I forgot to mention, when I was thinking about the guy who was having trouble, and I was wearing his sweater, I do remember realizing, I'm wearing his sweater, I need to take it off, because his energy was like all over me. So it's like, okay, I have to take this off so I can like focus on other things. But it was kind of good that happened, because I think thinking about him is what made me think about everyone else, or at least kind of triggered that realization of like, I worry about people and I want to help people. Anyway, so I went to the fire, and I remember he was there, and he was like, how was your trip? And I looked at him, I was like, I thought about you a lot. And I'm like, are you okay? Because he had been having a hard time. He was like, yeah, I'm okay now. And it was like so good to see that he was okay then. And then I remember I sat there, and the sun was up, and the fire's kind of out, and I just kind of look up at the sky and have this realization about one of my other exes and how happy it makes me to see him happy. And he had like a lot of issues with like drugs and stuff, so it was something that I had this realization how important that is to me. I don't know. So anyway, I eventually ended up going back to my bed. I'm like, I don't think I really fell asleep. I kind of fall asleep, and then like I kind of wake up, and I'm still in it. I'm like, why am I still in it? Did I miss something? But then I had forgotten that at the beginning of my trip, when I was like, the trip was kind of coming on, and I kept reminding myself of my intentions, this one thing kept coming to my head: self-love, self-love, self-love. And so I'm lying there, and I'm like, I didn't address self-love, because that was something that my trip was telling me at the beginning, think of self-love. So I'm thinking of self-love, and then I start having this like kind of repressed memory come on, and I won't go into it, but I essentially was like, I was scared of it. I was like, oh fuck, like this is not something like I want to think about. Like I didn't even know that this is something that would come up, because it was repressed. I didn't even know about it. So I'm like, okay, I need to deal with the medicine. I was like, I can't look at this right now. I can't look at this memory right now. I could tell it was traumatic. So I was like, I will meditate on this. I will figure this out like later. But because I was still tripping, I was like, I can't do it right now. I knew it felt too much at the moment. So I was like, please, like, let me figure this out later. And luckily the medicine kind of backed off, and I was able to process that at a later point, luckily. But I kind of wish I had just done it then, because it was like right there, and I could have just gotten it over with. But it is kind of scary when you're tripping still. And anyway, so I guess I realized that that was kind of getting in the way of my self-love. There's obvious, I didn't really realize self-love was that much of a problem for me, but I guess it really has been throughout my life. And, you know, thinking about when I was 15 and being this depressed teenager and all this stuff like was coming up, kind of before the trip actually. And then I kind of connected that to everything else. I don't know, it's very multifaceted, I guess. But, yeah, and then, you know, finally we have our fruit, our breakfast, we do our last sweat lodge. It's beautiful, and you come out and you go home and process everything. And actually integration, which has been this past month, is you think most of the healing happens afterwards, for sure. Like when you're in the ayahuasca, it shows you everything you need to see, and it does heal you, but like all that healing continues for like the month afterwards, and there's some points that you can still completely feel the medicine with you, I guess, if that makes sense. So I think I will do a video about integration at some point in the near future. I actually yesterday did Bufo alvarius DMT, because it is something that I was highly recommended to do. And so I'm going to post that as my next video about that, because I took the video yesterday after I did it. And that was a great way to kind of close up this whole thing. But yeah, so I wanted to do a video about integration and everything after ayahuasca. But yeah, I hope my experience was helpful to some of you. It's a highly personal, it's different for everybody. But if you ever have the opportunity to do something like this and you feel ready, I would 100% recommend doing it, because ayahuasca is incredible. And Mundo Gente Medicina, they are incredible people. I mean, it's such a great place for healing, so thank you for watching. Oh, actually, the clips are coming right up after this clip. Hey, so I've been here for like a little bit, and we just ate. They made us like this really nice light spinach soup with like cauliflower rice, and that's our last meal. So we had that around 3, and then our ceremony's at 8. So I'm gonna like rest and then get into the ceremony. So I'll see you after that at some point to tell you all about it, hoping for the best. Hey, so it's the morning after, and I had an ego death, so still processing that.